You're standing in your garage on a Tuesday night in November, and the space heater you bought off Craigslist for $40 is doing absolutely nothing against the cold coming through the door seal. 6 rigs are humming in front of you, each one built from parts you sourced off forums where nobody uses their real name. The noise used to bother you. Now it's just the sound of the room. Your wife thinks you're down here messing with computers again, which isn't wrong exactly. It's just not the whole sentence. It's 2013. Bitcoin is sitting around $200 that week, though it moved $60 in the last 4 days, and nobody in your life would recognize that as anything other than a video game currency. You mine because it's cheaper than buying, because you like the math of it, because a coworker named Ray showed you a forum post 6 months ago, and you couldn't stop thinking about the part where he said the hard cap is 21 million coins. Ever. No more. No matter what anyone does. Scarcity that nobody can print away. You liked that sentence more than you expected to. You don't tell anyone what you're actually doing, not the real version. Ray knows you mine. Nobody knows how much you've kept. The first real number. By spring of 2014, you've accumulated a little over 40 Bitcoin, sitting quiet in a wallet you back up on a USB drive taped to the underside of a drawer. The price crashes that year, down to $300, then further. Your co-workers who bought in near the top are done with it, embarrassed, calling it a phase. You keep the rigs running anyway, because electricity is cheap in your part of Washington state, and the math still works even at these prices. And because some part of you has already decided this isn't about the number this month. It's about not touching it. That's the whole strategy, if you can call it one. Not touching it. Your annual income at your actual job, doing network administration for a regional hospital system, is $58,000. Your garage operation, at 2014 prices, is worth somewhere around $12,000 on paper. Nobody at work knows that number exists. You eat the same lunch you always ate. You drive the same 2009 Honda Civic with 90,000 miles on it that you bought used the year you got married. Nothing about your life outwardly changes, because changing it would mean explaining it, and explaining it would mean someone might ask how much, and you have already decided that question doesn't get an honest answer from you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What discipline actually costs? 2017 is the year it gets hard to keep quiet. Bitcoin runs from under $1,000 to nearly $20,000 by December, and it's on the news now, actual network news, and your brother-in-law brings it up at Thanksgiving like he's the first person to discover it. You nod along. You don't mention the wallet. Your holdings, if you sold that week, would be worth something over $1.4 million. You eat turkey. You wash dishes afterward. Your wife asks if you're feeling okay because you've gone quiet, and you tell her you're just tired, which is true in a different sense than she means it. You don't sell. Not because you have some grand thesis about future price targets. You don't sell because the version of you that started this in a cold garage never built a plan for spending it, only a plan for holding it, and you're not sure yet how to write the second plan without breaking the first one. By early 2018, the price is back under $7,000. Your $1.4 million is worth $500,000 again, on paper, in a wallet, on a drive taped under a drawer. Ray, the co-worker who showed you the forum post 5 years ago, sold most of his at $17,000 and bought a boat. You see the boat in his driveway sometimes. You never ask him what it cost him to buy it at the top and never grow it further. He never asks you what you kept. The trust. By 2020, you've stopped mining. The difficulty curve made home rigs pointless years ago, and the coins you're holding are just sitting, doing what they do without your involvement. You meet with an estate attorney that spring, a careful woman named Deborah who works out of a converted house near the courthouse, and you tell her you need something set up that doesn't put your name on anything visible. She's done this before, for people who inherited family businesses, for people who don't want their name in a probate filing someday. She's never done it for someone who mined it themselves out of a garage, but she doesn't ask you to justify the money. She just asks how you want it structured. You walk out with an LLC that has a name, meaning nothing to anyone who might Google it, and a plan for converting small pieces of the holding into cash without triggering the kind of tax event that shows up as a headline number on anyone's radar. Deborah's rule is simple. Never sell enough at once that the transaction itself becomes the story. You still drive the Civic. It has 190,000 miles on it now, and a check engine light you've been ignoring for 8 months, because fixing the actual sensor costs $40, and dealing with it feels beneath the effort. Your wife knows about the holdings by then, has known since 2016 actually, since the night you finally told her, because keeping something that size from the person you sleep next to started to feel less like protection and more like a wall you were building inside your own house. She took it better than you expected. She asked one question. How much? You told her. She was quiet for a long time, and then asked if you were going to keep. The email from your accountant arrives on a Thursday morning in late 2024. You're standing in your kitchen making coffee, still in the same house you bought in 2011 for $210,000, a modest 3-bedroom with a yard that needs mowing and a garage that hasn't held a mining rig in 4 years. The subject line says nothing dramatic. Portfolio valuation, quarterly. You open it, standing at the counter. Your total holdings, spread now across the original Bitcoin position, a diversified brokerage account funded from years of careful partial sales, and a small stake in 2 rental properties. Deborah's team helped structure, through the same LLC, have crossed $600 million. You read the number twice. You don't feel the thing you expected to feel. There's no rush, no urge to call anyone, no impulse toward a purchase that would announce anything. You just stand there holding a coffee mug with a chip in the handle that you've meant to replace for 3 years and never have, because it still holds coffee fine, and replacing it always felt like solving a problem that didn't exist. Your wife walks in, asks what's wrong, because your face apparently does something when you're holding a number like that. You tell her the accountant sent the quarterly update. She asks how it looks. You tell her the number. She sets down what she's carrying and doesn't say anything for a second, and then asks the same question she asked 8 years ago in a different kitchen. Are you still going to drive that car? You laugh, actually laugh, for the first time that morning, because somehow that's still the question that matters to her more than the number itself, and you realize that's exactly why the secrecy never felt like a burden the way it might have with someone else. She was never chasing the number. She was just making sure the person attached to it didn't disappear into it. The temptation. Somewhere around 2021, with the price near its old highs again and your holdings crossing 8 figures for the first time on paper, you come closer than you ever admit to anyone. A dealership 2 towns over has a Porsche 911 sitting in the window, black on black, and you sit in the parking lot on a lunch break, just looking at it through the glass, the way you used to look at the Bitcoin price on your phone under your desk at the hospital system. You've already priced it out in your head. You could buy it outright, no financing, and it would register as nothing against what you're holding. Less than a rounding error. You don't buy it. Not because you don't want it, you do, in the specific and uncomplicated way anyone wants a car like that. You don't buy it because you already know what happens the moment it's in your driveway. Someone asks how you afford it. You either lie or you don't, and neither answer leaves the garage feeling like it used to. Deborah had told you something in that first meeting back in 2020 that stuck with you longer than almost anything else she said. The first purchase is never the expensive one. It's the one that requires every purchase after it to make sense next to it. You drive back to work in the Civic. The check engine light is still on. You still haven't fixed it. The call you didn't take further. Your younger brother calls in early 2022. He's trying to get a landscaping business off the ground, needs $30,000 for equipment and a truck, and he's asked your parents already and gotten a no. And now he's asking you because he knows you do okay with computer stuff, which is the phrase your family has settled on for whatever it is you do. You could send it before he finishes the sentence. It would cost you nothing you'd ever feel. You don't send it that way. You ask him to send you his numbers instead, the actual cost breakdown, what the equipment financing options look like, what 3 competitors in his area charge, and why. He's annoyed at first, thinks you're making him jump through hoops for money you clearly have. You let him be annoyed. 2 weeks later, he sends over a real plan, tighter than the first one, with a used truck instead of new, and a financing rate he found on his own that beats what you would have just handed him blind. You co-sign the equipment loan instead of paying cash for it outright, because a debt he pays down himself is a business he actually owns, and a check from you would have been a business he was renting from his brother without knowing it. He doesn't know what sending that $30,000 outright would have meant to you financially. He thinks you helped him with paperwork and a co-signature. He's not wrong. He's just missing the part where you understood something Deborah had told you about money handed to people who aren't structurally ready for it yet, and chose the harder, slower version on purpose. What the silence was actually for. There's a version of this story where you tell people, where the co-workers who called it a phase in 2014 find out what happened, where Ray sees something other than a boat in your driveway, where the number becomes a story you get to tell at a dinner table instead of a fact you carry alone. That version exists somewhere as a road you didn't take, and most nights you don't think about it at all. What you think about instead, on the nights you do think about it, is the cold in that garage in 2013, the space heater doing nothing, the sound of 6 rigs running while your wife assumed you were just messing with computers again. 11 years of not touching it. 11 years of a $58,000 salary, living next to a number that eventually crossed 9 figures, with nobody at the hospital system, nobody at Thanksgiving, nobody in the driveway with the boat, ever knowing the distance between what you had and what you showed. The Civic finally died in 2023. You bought another used one. Nobody noticed the difference, because there wasn't one to notice. What the money actually bought you, in the end, wasn't the number on the account statement. It was the 11 years where nobody's opinion of that number ever got to change how you moved through an ordinary Tuesday. The garage is empty now, just storage, just a space heater nobody plugs in anymore, sitting in a corner, gathering dust next to a drawer that still, if you looked, has tape residue on the underside where a USB drive used to live. You don't need the drive anymore. But some nights, you still know exactly where it would have been.